Good evening, everybody. My name is Cody Kennedy, and I am a naturopath and director at CK Health. Thank you very much for joining me this evening for the talk all about eating and weight loss. So just to start off with, I'd love to know if you can hear me or not. So I wonder if you could just type in the chat box. If you just move your mouse around and you'll see a little chat icon come up at the bottom. Would you just be able to type in there for me, yes, that you can hear me? That would be wonderful. Are you able to hear me? Fabulous. Okay. So I will start off by sharing my screen with you. Before I do that, I'm just going to put in that little chat box my my business website for you. That doesn't seem to be working, so just 1 second, let me just do that, and then we will get going. There we go. Okay, so I've sent that to you. So now I'm going to share my screen and we can start the presentation. So just to start with a little bit about CK Health. So CK Health is a wellness clinic based in Merriweather in Newcastle. We have 2 naturopaths. We have an infrared sauna, beautiful infrared sauna, which is actually awesome for weight loss. So you can burn 600 calories in the sauna in one 30-minute session, which is pretty impressive. We have a salt room as well, which is really great for any respiratory problems, asthma, eczema as well, anxiety, those sorts of conditions. And we also have a beautiful space in which we can hold talks when we're not in this COVID environment. But we will start doing that again soon, I hope very much. So we are an award-winning clinic. So we won Clinic of the Year in 2018. And in 2019, we were a finalist for the Hunter Business Award in micro business. So we've got some nice awards on our belt as well. And I personally, as I said, I'm a naturopath. Part of my training was that I became a nutritionist as well. So very equipped to help you out with questions and things about weight loss. I am degree qualified. I like to work in a very evidence-based way. And by that, what I mean is I'm very research-based. I tend to look up a lot of research papers and read things like that before I offer people any additional help with things that are particularly complex. I work a lot with people with autoimmune diseases. So these are things like MS, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, those sorts of diseases. So some of the really sort of complex chronic health issues would be my sort of key area of focus. But tonight, what we are going to be talking about is weight loss. So to give you a bit of an overview, I'm going to talk about the lowdown on weight loss. So what I mean about that is I'm going to share with you a bit of information about the industry, I guess. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite diet options. And I think that these are things that I've found in clinical practice and in a bit of my research as well to work the best. And we're going to talk about yo-yo dieting and how to, get the weight off in the first place, but how to actually sustain that. And this is the problem that most people have. So we're going to go into that as well. So first of all, I guess it's important to remember that at some point in most people's lives, they want to lose a little bit of weight. Now, we think about women mainly with this, but certainly some men do go through this as well. And it's really not very unusual situation. So there's a few influences and things that we go through in life, I guess, that will really influence whether or not we put on weight. So the first one, of course, for us girls is pregnancy. So this was certainly for me a period in my life where I put on weight and then found it difficult to lose the weight afterwards. A new relationship, it's actually really common to put on weight when you start a new relationship, and that goes for men and women. Menopause would be another time. So we get big swings in our hormones and we get changes in where fat distributes in the body and everything just slows right down. And that is when we are going through, menopause and our body just changes. if we're over 40, so that's men and women. So over 40 with women, you're perimenopausal. Again, you're getting those shifts in estrogen, but you're also just getting, sometimes the thyroid can start to underfunction, and this can cause problems as well. Certain medications we might take, so if we ever go on antidepressants, for example, which I'll go into in a little while, but certainly medications and some other health conditions as well can influence our body's ability to lose weight easily or not lose weight. So one of the things I'm going to talk about as I go through the presentation and share with you at the end is how you can book a free health assessment with me, which is a 20-minute assessment. And if you are going through any of these things, or even if you're not, but you're just struggling, you will be able to book an assessment with me for 20 minutes just to have a chat without any obligation and talk to me about your own situation. That link I put in the chat at the beginning is the link you would need to make that booking. So as we know, the diet industry is absolutely huge. It's worth billions of dollars. They make lots of money every year. So we're talking about anything from over-the-counter pills to weight loss centers to weight loss coaches, books, online weight loss societies, and there's even some apps now that are weight loss apps. Combine this with the boom of the 20-something-year-old internet marketer. So this is the bloggers, of course, selling diet advice online. Now, what is the problem with this? The problem, I feel, is that what they're telling you is what worked for them. It's not necessarily what will work for you. And this, I guess, is one of the issues with people who are blogging, is that, you know, they may tell you about, wow, they had this great success and this is what they did, but their body could be vastly different to yours. And I think it's really important when we look at things like weight loss, that we look at it very much from a point of view of what works generally across the board with lots of different people, not just one person, because we're all quite individual, of course. So I guess some people might say, well, why do we need to lose weight? You know, what's the deal with it? So aside, of course, from confidence and self-esteem, we all feel a bit nicer if we're looking a bit thinner and we can fit into our skinny pants instead of our big girls' pants. But apart from that, it's about our overall health. So carrying weight on top of our vital organs. So this is more when we're getting that weight around the midsection, of course. It is really bad for those organs. So extra weight on top of those organs is extra pressure on those organs, and it's just not great for overall health. So for example, it makes us more at risk of things like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease and strokes. Certain types of cancer are definitely we're more vulnerable to if we're carrying more fat, sleep apnea, osteoarthritis, because of course our joints are a lot more stressed, fatty liver disease, so this is where you get an infiltration of that fat into the liver, and kidney disease as well. So there's lots of reasons why we would want to not be carrying excess weight. I should also add on to that list actually fertility, because certainly if you're carrying too much weight, it increases your estrogen, which can really mess up your hormones and make fertility a little bit more of an issue. Not for everyone, but certainly for some women. So there are some health conditions that make us really struggle with losing weight. And I think it's a really important point to make, because some people just think that they are not very good at dieting, or that they don't eat the right things, or they're not doing everything right, but actually they could have an underlying health condition. So those conditions are things like hypothyroidism. So I'm not sure if any of you have heard of this, but this is basically where your thyroid gland, which sits here in the neck, is functioning under par. Now, this is all about metabolism. So if your thyroid gland is not working properly, you'll get lots of symptoms of things slowing down in the body. So you tend to feel cold, so you don't retain heat very well. Your hair can fall out. You can get constipated. Your voice can even get slow, actually, and you can get hoarseness of the voice. You can do everything possible and not lose weight. So these are really quite, this is really quite a common problem that I see. So when someone comes into clinic and they tell me they've done everything they possibly could to lose weight, I always ask them, have you had your thyroid checked? Do you have a thyroid problem? These sorts of things. Depression would be another one. Depression greatly affects our ability to lose weight as well. Stress is massive. I've had other clients who have definitely done everything right and they were just so highly stressed. Their adrenals were working overtime and they could not lose weight. As soon as we worked on that stress and got that stress a bit more under control, their body relaxed a bit, their metabolism started to speed up and they started to shift a bit of weight. PCOS, so for those of you who don't know what that means, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a syndrome, meaning it normally has lots of different components to it. I'm going to talk a bit more about that actually. Heart failure makes it very hard to lose weight, and kidney disease, because you are retaining lots of fluid and you're often just really lots of fluid retention. So with your kidneys not working properly, it's very difficult to shift that weight as well. So I wanted to tell you about a lovely young girl called Susie that I started to see at the beginning of the year. Now, Susie came in to see me for one of the free assessments. She was 24, or she is, I should say, 24 years old. She was very overweight. Now, Susie was definitely one of those people who said to me, I've done everything I possibly can. I've tried every diet. I exercise 4 times a week. You know, I swim, I do this, I do that. And on paper, everything that she was doing, it really did sound that she was doing everything right. Now, when people tell me about their diet, I always get them to do a food diary so I can clearly see and get them to write portion sizes, and we can look at that and see if there is anything wrong with that. But she certainly was really kind of on the right track with everything. So anyway, I was talking to Susie in her free assessment, and I noticed that she had some hair on her chin. So I actually said, oh, Susie, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Do you find you're very hairy? And she said, oh yeah, I've got quite hairy arms, and I do have a little bit more kind of pubic hair going up here a bit. And so I asked Susie a few more questions about her periods. So it turned out Susie and I started to work together. We did some testing and we found out that Susie had that polycystic ovarian syndrome that I was talking about before. Now, one of the things that happens with polycystic ovarian syndrome is you get really high testosterone, which is why you get the hair growth. You also get high insulin, which Susie definitely had. So her metabolism was just shot. Her metabolism wasn't working properly. We had to really work on getting the inflammation down in her body, sorting out her periods, and actually working a lot on her insulin levels. And that meant the roll-on effect was she started to lose weight. So after lots of years of trying really a whole heap of things, she never really got to the crux of what the problem was. So that's what we did with her. And so far, so I started working with her in January, and so far she's going very, very well now. So some other reasons why we can't lose weight sometimes is medications. Certainly things like prednisone, like your steroids, make it really tough to lose weight. Some antidepressants make it hard, antipsychotics like your lithium, and some diabetic medications as well. So I think it's always important to think about why you can't, and not just about, you know, the fact that you are struggling to lose weight, as I said before. So is weight loss simply calories in versus calories out? Now, I'm sure if you've been to things like Weight Watchers, you've probably done the point system, you've probably been told it is that, but it sometimes is that, absolutely, but not always. So what about if it is this problem? What about if you just basically eat too much and you have a very sedentary job, so you don't burn enough calories? What can you do in this kind of situation? To be honest, this is probably the simplest situation for someone who wants to lose weight. But like I say, it certainly is not always the case. So one of my favorite things for people who just need to really start to burn more calories and learn how to eat properly is something along the lines of the Michelle Bridges 12-week weight loss program. Now, this is a customized program. It is, she does nutrition, she does a bit of fitness. So she is a personal trainer. So she'll give you exercises to do. She talks a lot about mindset. There's a Facebook group. And I actually think for what it is, and if that is your issue, this is a good option. There's another similar program which I quite like called Kim Beach as well. But this is a very good program. So I like it for these reasons. So I'll just let you know, at the moment they have a special offer on, and it's $10 a week instead of $20 a week. So it's 50% off. I don't know how long they're doing that for. So it's relatively cheap for what it is. You get the support, you get nutritional plans, you get an exercise plan, you get some information around mindset. And I actually find the mindset is one of the biggest barriers that I find with most of my clients. And you can customize it to yourself. So if you're gluten-free or vegetarian, or you're low FODMAP, lactose-free, there's all these different options when you're looking at your meal plans. So if your problem is calories in, calories out, you don't eat enough, you don't exert enough energy, this is a good choice for you. However, there are other choices too. The Whole30 is an absolutely awesome program to teach you how to eat properly. So this is basically where you commit to eating whole foods for 30 days. Sounds pretty straightforward. There's no exercise involved in this program. It's pretty much about just teaching you how to eat properly. So if you're one of these people who you feel you don't know what to eat, you've never eaten healthily, you were brought up with a very unhealthy diet, you live on fast food, this is a great program. And this is only 30 days. So I think it's really easy to get your head around the Whole30 and go, hey, it's a month, I can do that. They generally always start on the first of the month. So there's a Facebook page, you can buy the cookbook, you can read the rules of the Whole30. You don't need to pay to do it particularly. And you basically just eat whole foods. So you're not eating anything processed at all. It's a little bit on the paleo side as well, which I quite like. If you want to do this with support, you can do this via something called Real Plans, which I'm going to talk about in a minute as well. So the Whole30 resets eating habits. If you're someone with a crazy sugar craving and you do the Whole30, you'll find they dissipate after a week or two. It gets you back to basics of food and actually trains you into eating really pretty good, nourishing food, but it's really pretty basic too. They have a great Facebook group. It's very economical to do. You do not count calories, which I really like. And it's gluten and dairy free. So it's it is amazingly healthy. This is not like doing shakes and dropping kilos, but you're never really learning how to eat properly. This is about learning how to eat properly. And that's the type of client that I would recommend this for. Now, what about fasting? I don't know if any of you have ever tried fasting, but I actually do really quite like fasting for weight loss. So fasting is basically what it is, a voluntary abstinence from food for a period of time. The body then starts to rely more on something called ketones for energy than glucose. So it taps into stored energy and you lose weight. So 4 to 8 hours after you've eaten, your body uses fat, glucose, and amino acids from your last meal. So that's all the body's doing all the time. If you eat every 4 to 8 hours, you're just in this cycle. 10 hours after food, your body starts to use glucose from your muscles and your fat stores. But after this, the use of free fatty acids and glycerol from fat tissue is what the body starts to tap into. So a 14 to 36 hour fast, we get a reduction in insulin and glucose. I'm not suggesting you fast for 36 hours. a 48-hour fast, you get a big reduction in inflammation. So this is really quite useful for people who have very bad inflammatory conditions. The long-term benefits of fasting are it lowers your blood pressure. Awesome for lowering blood pressure. It enhances your brain function, but not initially. Initially, some people feel the brain function is a bit worse. It resets your gastrointestinal tract. So if you're someone who has Crohn's disease or colitis, or you get IBS, fasting can actually be really good for giving your GIT a rest. It reduces your cholesterol, and it's great for pain management too. The negatives of fasting are, if you fast for too long, so I'm talking about over 16 hours, you can actually get gallstones. Now, this was a Longo study. So this was a study done by a Professor Longo. It is not beneficial for anyone with hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, and underactive thyroid. This is not the best method, and it's not great for people who have hypoglycemia either. So hypoglycemia is basically where you have very low blood sugar. Now, when your blood sugar is really low, you need to eat more regularly. So that would be something that I would not recommend the fasting for. If you have an underactive thyroid, you actually tend to need more carbohydrates to get your thyroid to work a bit better as well. So they're not, those two conditions, I would not recommend fasting. So people who shouldn't fast as well are women who are pregnant or breastfeeding. Young children should never fast. People with liver problems or an inadequate liver function, kidney problems like renal failure. They have a low percentage of body fat. I'm not sure why they'd want to fast anyway if they had a low percentage of body fat, but you know, you're basically at starvation level. People who are very old shouldn't fast, and people with something called Gilbert syndrome, which is a liver condition, shouldn't fast as well. People who are highly stressed, highly anxious, or have a really busy workload, often it sends them into a little bit of a that emergency state that when they then eat, their body tends to hold on to calories and turn it into fat and store it. So it's not a great resolution for women who are, particularly women who live in that kind of high stressed environment. If you have a history of an eating disorder or a current eating disorder, I would not recommend fasting either, because it makes you way too conscious of being hungry and food, and it can really re-trigger those feelings for people. If you have anemia as well, so this is where you have low iron, it's not great. If you suffer from malnutrition, which I would hope that no one in Australia would today, if you have muscle wasting or weakness, I would not recommend that you try fasting either. Certain types of cancer as well are not so great. Let me just go back to that one if I can. And when you're exercising intensely, you need more calories, so you need to really increase the time between each meal. And also if you have something called low T3, which is going back again to those thyroid issues. So I don't think fasting is great for those kinds of people. And you know who you are. Everyone else, fasting is awesome and it works quite well, but I'm going to give you some tips on fasting. So intermittent fasting is when you have a fasting window of you have an eating window of 8 hours a day, and you fast for 16 hours. So that's your overnight fast, okay? The other way of doing this is you eat within a 10-hour window of time and you fast for 14 hours. You'll get better benefits if you do 16-8, okay? So you're basically, if you think of if say you stop eating at 7 o'clock at night, you would probably start eating again at 11 a.m. So you wouldn't have breakfast in the morning until 11 a.m. So the way I get people to do this is to make a chia pudding or something in like a bircher muesli or something in a jam jar, put the lid on, take it to work with you, and then have that at 11 o'clock in the morning. one of the things with this kind of diet is you have to eat properly in that 8 hours. If you get to that 8-hour period and you go, oh, I don't need to eat, I actually am not very hungry, I think this is where people get into trouble with this, and then they just get starving, and then they start really not having enough calories, and then you get into this really poor cycle where you are actually just storing fat because your body is feeling that it's in starvation mode. Okay, some of the benefits are it's actually quite easy to do. So for 90% of clients, it captures some of the metabolic benefits of abstaining from food, but you're still eating 3 meals a day. So, you know, you might feel a little bit hungry around 10 a.m. in the morning, but generally you can push it out an extra hour, have a herbal tea, or you can have a black coffee. That doesn't break the fast. And then by the time you get to sort of 11 a.m., you can then have your breakfast. You can lose about 0.5 kilo a week doing this. So that's about what I see. But like I said, when you're in that eating phase, you need to make sure you have breakfast, lunch, dinner within that 8 hours. That's really important. You've probably all seen the Michael Mosley book, The Fast Diet. So this is also known as the 5-2 diet. So with this diet, you eat normally 5 days a week, and you eat low calorie 2 days a week. You can also do a 6-1 where you eat normally 6 days a week and low calorie 1 day a week. Now the pros are you get much more rapid weight loss with this. So you can expect to lose between 0.5 kilo to 1 kilo a week doing this. But the thing that I find that happens sometimes with this is people overeat on the normal days. So, you know, the 5 days, if they fasted on the Monday, on the Tuesday, they can start, oh, well, I did so well yesterday, and they just really overeat. You need to just still be watching what you're eating on the other days, but you can certainly relax a lot more. This type of diet is about you being in calorie deficit at the end of the week. So you've eaten less than what your calorie intake should be. And on the days where you're only eating 500 calories a day, so that's on average about 1/3 of what you would normally eat, you'll feel hungry, but you'll get used to it. You do actually get used to it. And the next day you eat normally. So you split up your 2 low calorie days. You might do Monday and Thursday, for example. So since that book, Michael Mosley has also brought out the Fast 800 diet. Now, I think this was because maybe the book sales were dropping off a bit. I don't love this diet. It's basically where you eat 800 calories a day every day for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. And then you progress onto a modified 5-2 diet where on your fasting days, you're limiting your intake to 800 calories a day. And you're also trying to eat within that 10-hour window as well. So 800 calories a day every day for about 2 weeks, just to give you some kind of gauge with that. That's probably about 2/3 of a healthy calorie intake for a woman who's about 150 to 160 centimeters tall, let's say. Now, I personally don't love it, and there's a few reasons. One of the things you have to do when every single day you have to do low calorie for 2 weeks is you lose your willpower. So willpower is a really important thing when we are trying to do something new, but it is something that naturally wanes over time. And I am absolutely sure most of you are nodding your heads now, because when you're dieting, it's the lack of willpower that will make you fall off the wagon. We all start off really gung-ho and feeling, yeah, we're going to do it this time, it's going to be awesome. And then 3 days later or 4 days later, we're like, oh man, this is hard and I'm hungry and it's Friday night and everyone's going out, and it just gets really tough. So we shouldn't be relying on willpower too much. And with a diet like the Fast 800, we really are. When I see my clients for their free assessment, I actually love to email them out a copy of a booklet that I've put together called Finding Your Why. Now, finding your why is about clarifying your goals, why you want to lose weight, but really not just, oh, because I want to look better, but actually really delving into, you know, what your goals mean to you on a deep level, and then getting you to go back to that every kind of, you know, 2 to 3 weeks, print it off, have it there in your diary or in your bedroom somewhere, or just, you know, have it handy so that when you feel that you're not very motivated, you need to remember your why, because you cannot rely on your willpower to keep you going. So another diet that I really quite like is keto. Now, keto has probably had a little bit more press in Australia, I think this year. Last year, it really kind of got off the ground a lot in the States. This is a very, very low carbohydrate, high fat diet with moderate protein. The other version of this that I quite like is low carb, moderate fat. So basically, when you're doing keto, your carbohydrate intake, which are things like bread, rice, sweet potato, carrots are a carbohydrate, crackers, muffins, those kinds of things, they shouldn't exceed 50 grams per day. Now, that's really, really low. That's one slice of sourdough. So that means if you had a slice of sourdough in the morning, you know, you couldn't eat any tomatoes because they are 1 gram of carb per cherry tomato. You couldn't have any pasta, you couldn't have any bread or wraps or crackers, those kinds of things. So what you do more of is you rely more on fats. So you might have a salad, and you might have in the salad some goat's cheese, for example, or some avocado. So what this reduction in carbohydrates does is it puts your body into something called ketosis, hence the name keto. And it encourages the liver to burn fat for energy instead of carbohydrates. Now, I actually really like this diet, and there's a couple of reasons. One, I personally have done this diet and I did not feel hungry at all. And I think that's a massive bonus when you're dieting. When you're doing fasting, you definitely have stages where you feel hungry. But when you do keto, I think that those days are much fewer and far between. So that's one of the reasons particularly why I like it. The bad things about keto are when you transition into your body burning fat instead of carbohydrates for its energy source, you can get flu-like symptoms. So you can really start to feel like you don't have any energy, and you feel very flat, and it doesn't matter what you eat, but you just tend to not feel great. But this only lasts for a few days. And actually, if you transition into keto and don't just completely cut the carbs out, but you go really slowly, you just slowly cut them down over a week or two, you don't get the flu-like symptoms at all. Some people find keto quite hard to maintain. I honestly cannot say that that was my opinion of it. I did not struggle with it at all. The pros are it's actually awesome for brain fog. So it's really good for your memory and makes your brain feel sharp once you get through that initial flu-like symptoms. And it reduces inflammation and your insulin. So that's actually the style of diet that we did with the lady who came to see me with the PCOS, because she had very high insulin. We did a keto style diet with her. So some people say, well, if you're eating all that fat, isn't it bad for your cholesterol? I think we don't really know yet the long-term effects of this type of diet. So a few studies have shown that some patients get an increase in cholesterol in the beginning, but they see it drop afterwards. There isn't a lot of research analysing this over the long term. But one thing I will say is, I think when you do keto, you're better off to stick to healthy fats. So these are things like olive oil, oily fish, nuts and seeds, your avocado, your sort of like flaxseed oil, flaxseed meal, those kinds of fats, rather than your saturated fats like your butter and your cheese and those kinds of things, because they are just healthier fats anyway. So your average weight loss on keto will be about 1 kilo a week in the first month. A lot of this is fluid. So this is really interesting. So when you eat carbohydrates, they are basically stored in the form of something called glycogen. Okay, and so for every gram of carbohydrates that you store in the body, your body will store 2 to 3 grams of water. So when you cut carbohydrates out or reduce them, you will lose a lot of fluid retention. So if you're someone who you feel that you are really fluidy and you carry a lot of fluid, going keto can often really help get rid of some of that fluid. So it can be really, really good for that. I mentioned before, if you were interested in doing the Whole30, that there was something called Real Plans. So you can also do keto on Real Plans. Real Plans is an American website that's gathered basically lots of different recipes from really awesome providers of autoimmune paleo and vegetarian and GAPS diet, all these different diets from across the web. They've got the best of the best on there. And they have made meal plans out of them. So you basically go in and you choose the plan you want to do, and you choose the meals you want, how many serves you want, if you want it just for you or you and your partner or you and your children or whatever. And it puts it all together and it does the shopping list, and it's absolutely awesome, and it's not very expensive. I recommend people trial this for a month when they're starting a new diet to get their head around it. It makes it much easier than trying to fuff through it yourself without any support or any help. So that's called Real Plans. So I really am a big fan of that. There's lots of other diet options out there. I'm sure that you know that. We've got shake programs, we've got Weight Watchers, Light and Easy, Jenny Craig, Kim Beach, I mentioned earlier, and on it goes. I really would encourage you to be careful of the things you choose to do. I just did today a very quick search on the internet to see if I could come up with anything when I keyed in, you know, supplements for weight. I think I've keyed in. I came up with this thing, first of all, Thinko. Please do not buy this. The cost of this is crazy. This is a 30 ml bottle. So what's that? About that big. And it will cost you $109 to $155 for the bottle. And this is supposed to target stubborn fat, like adipose tissue. Yes, adipose fat. Yes, it is a different type of fat. But I had a look at the ingredients in this, and it's basically just some amino acids. And the interesting thing is on the website, it says, oh, this must be done along with our low calorie diet plan. And I think that these kinds of things are just such a rip-off, because at the end of the day, if you are doing a low calorie diet plan, you will lose weight. You know, you don't need to add in the diet drops. And I think that to pay this kind of money for a product like that, it's certainly not something I morally as a naturopath feel is the right thing to do. So it wouldn't be something that I would be wanting anyone to do. So let's talk about keeping it off. So you've got to where you want to be, and then what do you do? So I guess one of the things that you have to remember is you probably need to implement some of the healthy habits that you've been doing for a long time, and make the way you're eating a way of life, and make it sustainable for yourself. So I'm not saying you have to constantly stay and be as strict as you were when you were on a diet, but you certainly need to keep some of the fundamentals of that dieting in your lifestyle. One of the things I find with weight cycling, or another word for that is yo-yo dieting, so where you diet, you lose it, you put it back on, is basically you get big changes in your metabolism. I mean, I saw someone just today who every time she eats, she says, I put weight on. And when I got her food diary, she goes 5 days drinking water and then starts eating again, and then wonders why she puts weight on, because the metabolism is so deranged and not right that it's all of the signals that she's getting from her hormones are completely off. So I would really encourage you not to do it that way. Extreme diet measures like that encourage a shift in the leptin and the ghrelin, and they make it a lot harder for you to lose weight. So just to talk a little bit about leptin. Leptin is a hormone which stops you from overeating. So this is where the brain sends a message that says, I'm full. So the bowel is sending the message to the brain saying, I'm full, I need to stop eating. And you go, okay, I'm done, I feel good now. Your leptin levels drop when you restrict calories too much, which is what I was just saying before, when you exercise excessively, and when you lose too much body fat. So you can get something called leptin resistance, where your body just doesn't read leptin, even though you've got a lot of it in your system, and you can be screened for that. So you can do a blood test and it will tell you your leptin's through the roof. The reason it's through the roof is because it's screaming at your body, you know, listen to me, I'm telling you to stop eating, and you're not hearing, you're keeping going with the food. So obese people are the type of people who don't respond to leptin very well. So the first thing in that kind of situation is you need to reset leptin. So one of the things that we need to think about is the rewarding aspects of food. So when we look at food, we get like a chocolate cake, for example, we get a rush of dopamine. So this is basically controlled by our central nervous system that controls leptin. So we need to think about the rewarding aspects of food, and food should be visually rewarding. We need to avoid foods that are highly processed or high in sugar. And there is some research on the use of intermittent fasting to reset leptin. So this is time restricted eating, what I said to you in the beginning. So you may go 16 hours of not eating and eat for 8 hours. So this has been associated with some improvements in that leptin sensitivity. And again, it helps with the fat loss as well. Another really great way of resetting leptin when you're dieting in particular is to have a cheat day. And I love cheat days for people who are doing keto as well. So what is a cheat day? It's once a week where you consume just a bit more calories, especially carbohydrates, than you would normally eat. And it tricks your body into thinking it's being overfed, which will increase your leptin. And this is really helpful when your weight loss plateaus. So I'm just going to say that again so you've got it. So once a week, you would just eat slightly more calories than normal. If you were doing keto and you were restricting your carbs, once a week, you might have a small bowl of rice, as an example. It tricks your body into thinking it's being overfed when it actually isn't really, and it will increase your leptin and it will help to get your weight loss out of that plateau. Some other things that you can do when you actually get to the weight you want to be. If you are doing the intermittent fasting, I actually have clients who continually intermittent fast, but they may only do 1 day a week. So I've got a gentleman who 10 years ago, he lost an enormous amount of weight, and he was doing 2 days a week fasting at that time. He still fasts 1 day a week, and he's kept his weight very stable. And he actually now really enjoys that day where he fasts and he doesn't eat very much. And he just finds it resets his body and it helps him to keep his weight on track. I absolutely love juice cleanses as well. Look at the colour of those beautiful juices. How can they not be good for you? So carrot and beetroot and beautiful kale and spinach and cucumber, I just love it. So juice cleansing is something that, you know, maybe you might say once a month you'll do a day where you just have juices all day, and you can either make them yourself if you've got a juicer. And this is a juice, not a smoothie, I should say, which is very different. Or you may go to a juice bar if you have one in a cafe near you, and you might order yourself a juice. So, you know, I love whole days of juice cleansing. So 1 day as a minimum, maybe if you can do 3 days, generally you should be drinking about 1.5 to 2 litres of juice. and you might even add in a bit of coconut water as well. And this is a really great way, one, of cleansing the body, giving the digestive system a rest, but also getting those calories down and keeping your weight stable as well. Another really good thing that you can do to help as well is to detox. So this is, I guess, a bit like a juice cleanse, but what you're trying to incorporate into it is things that actually help the liver and the kidneys flush out toxins. So your liver and your kidneys are doing these things all the time anyway, but what you're encouraging more when you do a detox is you're encouraging your liver to get rid of stored toxins. So particularly women, we tend to have more stored estrogen in our liver, and if we can detox and get rid of some of that, our hormones tend to be better, and then we tend to be able to lose weight a bit easier as well. It's not uncommon for someone to do a 4-week detox and lose 5 kilos in 4 weeks. And generally what you're doing is eating very clean, like the Whole30 diet, but you're adding in some supplements that just boost up that liver clearance, boost up the kidney function, and make everything sort of work a bit cleaner. I didn't put the infrared sauna on this page, but that is another way actually of keeping your weight down or helping you lose weight in the first place. So as I said, an infrared sauna is slightly different to a regular sauna where you've got hot rocks and you pour water on it. It's a dry heat, so it's very tolerable. And as I said, we have one in our clinic in Merriweather, and you can lose up to 600 calories in one 30-minute session. And I do tend to get people into the sauna when I'm working with them on weight loss if I can. Sometimes we do a little bit of a thing where I might get them to come in and be weighed every week, and then I get them to, you know, go in the sauna for half an hour at the same time, in between actually having full consultations with me. And then they're getting that support from me as well, and the accountability. So, you know, all round, it's a great way of really feeling supported on your journey. So I hope that you have got something out of the webinar this evening. So, you know, just to recap, I think that first of all, there's lots of different reasons why you can just have issues with not being able to lose weight. Sometimes they can be medical, like your thyroid, stress, your adrenals, PCOS, so your hormones, you know, all of these things. It's really worth you getting those things checked if you haven't done that in the past. I really love intermittent fasting, keto, and moderate carbohydrate, moderate fat diets as well for weight loss. I think they're really useful. And things like Whole30 as well can be really good to help you get into healthy eating if you don't feel your diet is serving you the way it should be. If you would like to chat with me a bit further, as I said at the beginning, I'm very happy to offer you a free 20-minute assessment with me. So at the moment, our clinic, because of COVID, is shut, but we are doing phone consults or Skype consults, or we are starting face-to-face consults as of Monday next week, the 1st of June. So you are more than welcome to book in for one of those. I'm pretty sure that I gave you the link to that at the beginning of the webinar, but I'm just going to do that again. So some of the things that I would do for weight loss in the clinic, along with some of those things, of course, that I talked about before, would be weighing you on the BIA scales. So these are special scales that will help you to know not just your overall kilos, but actually how much water you're retaining, how much fat you have in the body, what your metabolic age is, which I find absolutely fascinating, and it's great to see it coming down, and your ideal calorie intake for weight loss. So they're really great scales. We do meal plans and some recipes as well. And of course, it gives you that accountability. So all of that would be included in having some consultations. during the pre-assessment, of course, we would just be going through what you've tried, what you haven't tried, and I would be letting you know whether I think there's underlying causes and how to move in the direction of working out those causes. Thank you very much for listening. I think someone has asked if there's any questions. I'm actually not doing questions. What I would recommend, if you would like to have a chat with me, is that you book one of those assessments, and I'll be more than happy to go through your questions at the end. But thank you very much for listening. There will be a recording of this as well, which I will send out to everyone, so you can watch it again if you'd like to. But for now, good night and have a lovely evening. Thanks for watching. Bye.